Hey, Kelsey, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Jerry. How about you?
I'm doing well. Okay, so I got a question from you. This is a
All
question
right.
that some of my clients have asked, so I thought we'd kind of hop on a quick Zoom and answer these questions. You ready?
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so the way it's going to work, I'm going to ask you the question, you give your take, and if I have any follow-up questions, I'll go and follow those up, and then I'll give my take, and then you can do the same, and then we'll kind of wrap up with the conclusion on both of our ends on these questions. So
Sounds
the
good.
first question is going to be, what do you recommend as far as with clients? Do you do full body exercise splits or full body workouts, or do you do muscle group splits? And muscle group splits are like Mondays are chest and biceps, Tuesdays might be, legs and back, whatever, versus full body workouts where you're working the entire body. What's your advice?
Okay, so do I do full body splits or muscle group splits with my clients? Most of the time, I'm going to focus on full body splits because for most people, if you're training a few days a week, you're able to get in more repetition of the specific movements if you're focusing on full body versus just a couple muscle groups in one day. Some research has actually shown that hitting the muscle group less in a given day, but more times throughout the week has been more effective for gaining muscle.
Okay.
So I will tend to focus on the full body splits more than the muscle group splits.
Nice. Okay. So my take on that, it will be very similar to what you just said is I typically will use full body workouts with my clients where they're athletes or just kind of general pop. There's only some caveats where some people, some clients might be going to the gym, 6 days a week and maybe only seeing me 3 days a week, where we might throw in some body part emphasis workouts if they specifically ask for it. So if they want bigger arms, bigger chest, kind of like how you said, is if we hit them a little bit more frequently, we might get, some bench press on Monday, and that might be the only kind of chest exercise. But then on Tuesday, they're doing some flies, maybe some push-ups and other exercises that kind of pair up with what we did on Monday. That way they're getting a little bit more of a stimulus and kind of more frequency during that week, right? Because at the end of the day, I think the volume is the most critical thing for muscle growth. So volume is just basically how many sets and reps you're doing within the week, whether you crush it all on Monday versus spreading it throughout the week. Again, it's just a matter of there's other factors that we got to consider, but I'm pretty much on board with what you said as far as the full body workouts with my clients.
Awesome. Great.
And I think actually really quick, another advantage might be if we have a new client and they've
Mm,
never squatted with a barbell. If you only have, one day out of the week where they're squatting with the barbell versus we're doing it 3 days a week, maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday, people forget that that's a skill. Squatting with the barbell is a skill that people need to get better. Now, are you going to get better at riding your bike 3 days a week or once a week? More than likely, you're going to get better at riding it more frequently. So that's another advantage of having these more frequent full body splits where you're doing these exercises more frequently throughout the week versus just crushing them more kind of bodybuilding style.
absolutely.
All
Agreed.
right. Awesome. So we both agree, tend to favor more of the full body routines with a few caveats in between.
Yep. I've got a question for you. Today, the question is, which is more important for fat loss? From your perspective, would you say that nutrition is more important for fat loss or that exercise is more important for fat loss?
That is a great question and is a question that a lot of people ask, right? I would, in my opinion, they're both important, but specifically for fat loss, more important in my opinion is nutrition. Why? My reason it has to do simply with the amount of, let's just say if somebody has to eat 500 calories less a day, people underestimate how many calories that they're consuming and they overestimate how many calories that they're burning via exercise. If you really kind of look at how hard or how difficult it is to burn 500 calories via exercise, that's a tough workout. And, most folk, if you're not an athlete, you're just not pushing yourself as hard to burn that many calories. So it's much easier and much more practical to be able to eat or to cut out somewhere in your diet 500 calories than relying on exercise to burn 500 calories. Now, the best of both worlds would be to combine both, but in my opinion, strictly for fat loss, the most practical strategy is to focus more on your nutrition. How about you, Kelsey?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree with you. I think it is a lot easier to cut out a few hundred calories per day than it is to go physically burn that amount of calories. And while the two do help each other, they kind of have a synergistic effect. So when you start eating better quality food, when you're eating less, you're going to feel more energetic, which probably will make your workouts and your exercise sessions better anyway. When you exercise, it's going to remind you how difficult it is to actually burn those
Yeah.
calories. So you're going to want to eat better to support that throughout the day as well. So I agree. I think that initially nutrition is the catalyst that's going to make the biggest difference, but in the long run, the two should be paired and really support each other. So sounds like
Nice.
we're in agreement on that.
All right, we're in agreement on as far as
Awesome.
fat loss. Let's the big rock is gonna be your nutrition, but doesn't
Right.
downgrade as to how important fitness and your exercise component is as well. Awesome.
Absolutely.
All right. What are some strategies or a strategy that you use either with yourself or with your clients on how to create a caloric deficit? Because as we know, calories matter, and in order for one to lose some body fat, we have to be in a caloric deficit as opposed
Right.
to a caloric surplus. So what are some strategies or a strategy that you use that you can share with us?
So I have two simple strategies that I think are really helpful when you're trying to create a caloric deficit. The first one is cooking more of your food at home so that you can control exactly what goes into it. The second one is tied right into that. So if you are cooking your food from home and you do normally have more starchy, dense carbohydrates on your plate, say things like potatoes or rice, those things aren't bad, but to create a caloric deficit, an easy way to do that would be to replace a scoop of the potatoes with a scoop of something that's more fibrous, more nutrient dense, more colorful. So replace that with some type of vegetable that's green, or a salad, or carrots, or something that's got more nutrients, less calories, but that's still going to fill you up at the end of the day.
Nice. I like that. One thing that I've done, I mean, I've seen, and I see a lot of people do it as well, is like instead of using like regular rice, they've used cauliflower rice. And there's so many other now, especially
Absolutely.
nowadays, there's a lot of companies that are coming out with really tasty kind of swaps, and they're spaghetti squash and things like that, where you can't really taste the difference, and it saves you a few hundred calories just by swapping that out. So that's a great strategy.
Absolutely.
So
How
one
about
of
you? What are some of yours?
So I got two essentially that kind of work hand in hand. One thing that I've done when I was younger, we used to my parents had these large plates, right? We had these large glass plates, and that's essentially what gave us the awareness of how much food we were going to eat. So we had to fill the plate. So we might have two servings of rice, two servings of chicken, and that plate looked like, okay, this is how much serving size should be for that given plate. So one of the things that I do, and to this day still works, and with my clients, is just to buy eat off of smaller plates, use smaller bowls. I mean, think of cereal. If you get a regular bowl of cereal and you put in one serving, it looks like nothing, versus if you had a smaller bowl and you put one serving, you might fill that thing up, and psychologically you're almost tricking yourself into thinking, wow, I'm actually getting a pretty good serving size, when in fact it's the same serving size, just now we're comparing it to what we're using to eat off of, right? So smaller plates, smaller bowls, smaller cups if you're going to have juice or whatever that may be. And the second strategy, kind of similar to that, this is what I typically do. I did this literally 2 days ago, is when I go out to eat with friends and go to a restaurant, I automatically ask for a to-go box. And what I do is I cut up half of whatever I'm going to eat and I put it straight into the to-go box. I eat the rest, and then now I have the second serving when I get home later on or the next day. So psychologically, you can see these two strategies are playing on your mindset and your awareness. Something that you talked about before is to teach you, hey, you're not really that hungry. You're just probably eating because it's there and it's literally right in front of you. So if you can have a smaller plate, or you can order a to-go box, or you can actually, there's a lot of restaurants, you can just ask them like, hey, can you plate half of my order in a to-go and just bring out the rest? And that tends to work really well because you don't feel quote unquote cheated, or you don't feel like you're wasting food because there might be a few pieces left and you're just going to eat them because you don't want them to go to waste.
Absolutely. I think what you said about the psychology is super important. So sometimes you do have to trick yourself, and putting half of it in a box or putting it on a smaller plate is a great way to do that. I think another way to do that is just to start to pay attention a little bit more. So be more mindful when you're actually eating. Are you actually hungry right now? Why are you eating this? Is this making you feel good? Am I full? You know, paying attention to those things, slowing down your chewing so that you're eating less overall. You're paying attention, you're stopping when you're full. So I think all those things are really helpful, and hopefully will help the listeners here help create that caloric deficit a little bit easier. So
Yeah. And one other thing, last one, is even not going, again, I've heard this before, but I never really like understood it, but not going shopping when you're hungry. Cause
yes.
I tend to
Oh
put some
yeah.
things in my cart that I definitely didn't even care about or wanted, but because I was starving at that given time, it's an extra $30 that I spent, and it's probably usually not the healthiest of options because I'm just starving. So have a little
That is a
something to
great
eat
one.
before you go, especially go to Costco. Costco will get you.
It will. They will always catch you. Yes. Always have a snack before you go into the grocery store.
Nice. All
Awesome,
right. So
Jared.
we'll
Well,
definitely, thanks for taking the time to answer these questions, and we'll be doing these weekly segments, answering all of your questions. So you have any questions, Kelsey, where can people find you?
they can find me at Instagram at the Kelsey Lee. So Kelsey is spelled KelseyLeelee.
Nice.
Or they can go to my website, kelseyleemiller.com.
Nice. So
And
definitely
Jerry, what
go.
about you? Where can people find you?
So you can find me easiest place is Instagram at _ Jerry Arias. And then website's coming, so we'll have a lot more content on there as well. So just follow us if you want your question answered. Hit us through the DM. Just shoot us a message. Let us know what you're thinking. And again, these are meant to be very practical advice, things that we're literally doing for ourselves and for our clients. So if you have a question, let us know, and we'll talk about it next time on this weekly segment. All right, Kelsey. Well, I appreciate your time. Thanks for answering these questions, and you had some great advice. I know the listeners and the viewers are going to love. And if you do any of these strategies, give us tag us. If you're meal prepping, tag Kelsey and let people know that this is where you got the helpful tip. And because as practitioners, this is why we do it. We want to know if this is actually working for you, because it definitely brings us a lot of joy to see that our education and our experiences are helping other people.
Absolutely.
All
Peace
right.
out until next time.
All right. We'll see y'all. See ya.
All right.